TIFU by accidentally eating and loving pork as a Muslim. So I know that tonight I would treat myself to some Chinese and go to this nice restaurant right next to where I live. At this Chinese restaurant they make you write your order on a piece of paper, hit a button on your desk, and then someone comes and collects it and starts to prep your meal. When you are ordering you have to write the number of the dish you want. This makes it simple for them to understand what you want, and apparently I can't even do that right. So I pick the goat. For context, the number for goat was 15 and the number for pork was 16. I had never seen goat before and was feeling very adventurous tonight. I have also never seen cooked pork either, so I was setting myself up for disaster. My 15 must have blended itself into a 16. As the waiter brings me my food I was on a call and really had to pay attention to what my friend was telling me, so I didn't focus on what the waiter said my dish was and just thanked him. As I'm eating I am getting this euphoric sort of feeling. I had never expected goat, now knowing pork to be so amazing. I loved every single mouthful and was contemplating coming back tomorrow to try it again. As I went up to pay I thanked the waiter for such an unforgettable meal, now in more ways than one, and that the goat was amazing. He pauses processing my payment and squints at me. He goes on and says that I had ordered pork. I look and say that he was wrong and the goat was delicious. I think back and realize how stupid I was and that there was no way that could have been goat. I kind of froze for a while and questioned my life and my faith while other people waited to pay. The worst part is I want to try that again so bad. Too long didn't read. Went to restaurant where you order by writing number down. Tried to order goat 15 but instead order pork 16. Really enjoyed every mouthful, and after thanking the waiter for such good goat he told me that I had just in fact had pork. Know this guy that was telling his wife that he loves this dim sum place in SF when he used to live there that makes beef dumplings or shumai. He's Jewish and his wife is Chinese. They finally visit it years later and they order his dish. Wife takes a bite and tells him, "This is pork." Waitress confirms it. For years he's been eating pork and loving it. My mom's friend married a guy whose mother was Jewish and kept kosher. The in-laws came to visit. The friend went out for a little while to run errands and came back. She looked in the fridge, horrified, and said, "Mom, did you eat what was in the green bowl?" "Yes," said her mother-in-law. "Mom," she said, "that was crab salad." Mother-in-law shrugged and said, "God forgive me, it was delicious. I think that's your play here." Eater: "Yes, it was real crab, not imitation crab." And yes, she did address her mother-in-law as mom. I work in LTC and we have a Muslim resident with dementia, but she sure as heck remembers that she doesn't eat pork. When offering meal choices, she says no pig, no pig. Except one day, we had BBQ sausages on a bun. She adamantly reminds us no pig, no biggie. We bring another option, but everybody at her table is eating the BBQ sausage. So she starts to get a bit upset and says, "No, I want what they're having." We remind her that it is pig, and she doesn't eat pig. She says with a dead stare, "I want what they're having." Alright. She wolfs it down. She asks for another. Halfway through the second, she walks up to me, grabs my arm, and with the same dead serious look in her eyes, says, "This is so delicious. This is the best thing I've ever had." I don't know if she never had pork until she was like 90 years old, and sometimes I worry she's upset about it sometimes if she remembers the sausages. But it was kind of funny in a morbid way. One of my former co-workers just got done teaching a 6-month class on jet engine overhaul to a group of Saudis, all of whom were Muslim. One day during the class they all go out to Longhorn Steakhouse for lunch. My co-worker didn't go with them as he has other responsibilities to handle during lunch. When they all return to class he asks them how their lunch was. One speaks up and says, "It was great. I had ribs. Best meal I had in my life." Do you know what those were? It just said ribs on the menu. Co-worker replied, "Sorry, but here in Ohio, ribs are going to always be pork." The guy had to skip out on the first hour of class to call his wife to have her throw out the leftovers. My Muslim colleague was telling me how much he loved pepperoni pizza. I was like, you do know, don't you, that pepperoni is made from pork? His eyes went wide and he told he always thought it was made from beef. Once he got over the shock, he shrugged and said, well, what's done is done. We had a good laugh about it later. I'll never forget, my squad leader told me to get our interpreter a to-go breakfast container. I didn't think anything of it. I just grabbed the first one at the top. I hand it to him and go about my morning to get the trucks ready to go outside the wire. Next thing I know, I'm sprinting gate to gate in full combat gear and my 249 because the to-go container I handed to our terp had bacon in it. My squad leader thought I was being an ass. No man, it's 4 in the morning and my brain didn't kick in to inspect someone's food. Let me start by saying a few important things so I don't sound insulting, rude, or unsympathetic. I respect your beliefs and others who have religious affiliations. Who am I to say one religion is right or wrong? It's not my place. I went to high school and worked with a beautiful woman named Rana. I didn't know she was Muslim, and to sound naive, I didn't know she came from an Iranian family. Anyway, we as a group of friends made different pizzas and junk food for a party. She ate and ate and ate pepperoni pizza. She was devastated, horrified, and then said duck it to having eaten pork. I can still see the full 20-minute internal and external argument she had until she realized she was okay and that pork wasn't what she thought it was. Something similar growing up. We had a Muslim family living next door to us, and they had 3 boys a bit younger than my sister and I. And we'd play and such, and our families knew each other well. They were great people. My dad, not knowing a damn thing about their religion, was cooking pork chops for us one evening when the youngest boy, maybe 5 or 6 years old at the time, came around the house and said that whatever my dad was grilling smelled really good. So my dad asked if he wanted to try a piece. Of course he did. So my dad cut him a hunk of pork chop off and he ate it and loved it. A few minutes later, the mom came around the house looking a bit panicked and asked my dad what it was that he was grilling, and he told her pork chops. She went white as a ghost and said, we don't eat that. It's against our religion. LOL, my dad was flabbergasted, but Oma loved that pork. I had Christmas party at my place. I served some homemade bacon chips. We were all high, and one Muslim girlfriend took one without realizing what it was. She ate it and directly put smile on her face. She was like, this shit is so good, WTF is this? We were all laughing, but I doubt she tried it again. Back when I was a server, I had a customer order a BBQ pulled pork sandwich. Customer ate a third of it, and I dropped by to check in and see how the table's first few bites were. He's visibly upset and asks me if he's eating pork. I tell him, yes, you ordered the pulled pork sandwich. He tells me that he's Muslim and it's against his religion to eat pork. He then reamed me out and asked for a manager. Manager comes over with a menu and confirms with the customer, pointing to the title pulled pork sandwich, that the customer had indeed ordered and received the correct order. Pork was in the title. People, nonetheless. Manager removes the item from the bill. Customer proceeds to eat all but 2 last bites and leaves without needing to pay for his eaten meal and drink. Huh. I mean, we'll talk. OP. As someone who used to be fairly religious, but left the faith almost 20 years ago now, it might be an excuse to do some real soul searching and questioning, rather than just blind faith following everything thrown at you. There's usually a good explanation for why ancient religions had prescriptions against certain foods, which doesn't really make sense or carry over to the modern times. Example, I've seen an argument where placing a ban on certain foods aided in tribalism and breaking away from pagan practices, but also that it was used as a way to avoid poor hygienic practices of the times. 2000 or whatever years later, there's not really a lot of reason to just follow this because, in my opinion, eat and love that pork, brother. It's good shit. Also, if there is a higher power, personally I don't think they actually give a shit if you're chowing down on ham or not. 1. I'm sorry you're feeling guilty. That's never fun. 2. I grew up on a hobby farm with pigs, horses, etc. The pigs were the only animals we had who would tear up large patches of vegetation down to bare earth. My mom has a theory that this is part of why they're banned in hot desert countries. tearing up vegetation, hard-earned topsoil drying up and blowing away. 3 belief systems are packages of discrete beliefs. Self-identification with one particular system doesn't actually need to be an irrevocable commitment to every single belief. That goes for political, religious, moral, and ethical systems. One of life's great empowerments is claiming rightful ownership of your ability to change your mind, and correspondingly to make up your mind as well. I found myself in several weird situations when reminding liberal Muslims of pork. One time in college we had a Muslim friend sitting with us while eating dumplings. We didn't offer thinking he didn't eat pork, but after noticing him looking at our plate and us awkwardly explaining it had pork, he grabbed a fork and took one, saying he wasn't that kind of Muslim and tomorrow is a new day to be halal. Another instance was when we had a colleague from Turkey visiting. For lunch she ordered quiche Lorraine. I interrupted her and said that it had bacon. She was like, so what? And I said, well, bacon is pork. Me turning red for unnecessarily meddling. Turns out she likes pork. Go figure. School trip to Berlin quite a few years ago, and one of our classmates was a fairly devout Hindu. We went to McDonald's and he orders a cheeseburger. None of us schoolboys really notice anything amiss, we were idiots. Eats the burger. Loves it, loves it, and only then do we realize. Emergency room draft, did you just eat a cheeseburger? Yeah. It's just cheese. No. It's a hamburger with cheese on. Poor guy was distraught. Thought his parents were going to disown him for eating meat. We calmed him down a bit after a while. Just a mistake, buddy. Not your fault, etc, etc. After about 10-15 minutes he was a bit calmer and said, well, ham was bad, but thank God I didn't accidentally eat beef. Cows being super sacred to Hindus. From what I understand, that was a pretty traumatic explanation. I have a friend who is Muslim, but after once eating pork and having a beer, he now does both of those things. He's come to the conclusion that it makes no sense for a food to be banned, and while God would bother with micromanaging what he ate, he still does all the things a Muslim would otherwise do, but anything that's banned for silly reasons he'll go ahead and do. He keeps it from his family so they don't disown him. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos.